While equality for women has taken many strides since the start of the feminist movement, there are still many women who feel uncomfortable being on the streets after dark. The Take Back the Night Walk is about raising awareness of the problem related to violence against women. Emily Goodman is the executive director of the Fort St. John Women's Resource Center and says it is a cultural issue.
A lot of what we accept to be true, to be fact, to be the way that women are perceived, that women are treated, that men should be behaving, culturally is a really, really big issue in Fort St. John. If you're groped at a bar, that's not okay.
At various points in the walk, there was a pause so women could share their own stories of violence, whether it was from a personal experience or the experience of someone they know. Goodman says these stories are important because it puts a human face on the problem.
It's that human factor that really makes it real. We can rattle off statistics and we can rattle off statements, but it's hearing it from a person who's lived it that you really become grounded in the reality of what's out there, and you can put yourself in that person's shoes a lot more easily and feel empathy and a desire to make change.
Abuse comes in many forms, and Goodman says most of the women the center helps come from places where they are victimized in the home.
A lot of what we see at the Women's Center is women who that's been a chronic issue in their life, or since childhood there have been issues. You know, we're not seeing every single woman who's experiencing that in Fort St. John, but I bet if anyone talked to a friend or neighbor or family member in Fort St. John, they could say there's something that happened to them, or something that's happened to a friend, or something that they saw that they didn't understand or they weren't okay with. I think it's a lot more common than we'd like to admit. And just, you know, even after this march here, people would come over and just say, you know, I've seen this, or this happened to a friend, or this, you know, everyone knows someone. Violence isn't that far away from any of us, and that's not okay.
If you happen to know someone who is in an abusive environment, Goodman says the best thing that you can do is show the person support.
One of our speakers tonight gave a really good case on behalf of the women who she works with for what it means to be supported in wherever you're at on your journey. What she was saying was that whether a woman chooses to leave, to stay, or to go back to a relationship, wherever she's at, giving unconditional support and recognition for where she's at, and knowing that that there's love out there for her from family members and from peers. Further isolating a woman who's in that situation can only lead to more harm than good.
Supporting someone who is in an abusive situation can be hard. Understanding where they are coming from might not make sense at times. Goodman says there are plenty of places in town to call for information.
If you don't understand it, there are places that you can call to ask. You can call the Women's Center, you can call North Peace Community Resources, you can call a counselor, if you're a student, you can talk to a counselor at the high school just to get answers, even if you're just confused and have questions, whether it's for yourself or for a friend. But ultimately, just supporting women or men or anyone wherever they're at on their way to figuring out who they are and what's right and what's wrong. Is ultimately that support is what's most important to give.
The walk also serves as a kickoff of sorts for the Peace Project. Jill Wegg is a research assistant and support worker with the project, and says the goal of the project is to reduce violence against women.
So the Peace Project is a 3-year initiative that aims to reduce violence against women and girls in our community. So there's 3 steps to it. Our first step is just getting a community snapshot. So by that, we're going to do interviews, we're going to do community surveys, we're going to do focus groups. We just really want the community's opinion on violence against women, our attitudes about women, and we want to get the numbers. How many women experience violence in our community? What supports are there?
Over the past few weeks, Fort St. John has seen the Slut Walk, Sisters in Spirit, and now Take Back the Night. Wegg says over the past few years there has been a louder public voice when it comes to women's issues.
In the last few years, there's definitely more room for people to make noise about violence against women and about the issues that specifically women face, and there's a lot more people that are becoming very courageous and taking a stand and getting out there on the streets and making some noise about it.
In addition to helping run the Peace Project, Wegg was also one of the march's speakers.
What specifically gendered violence is, so I just clarified the term. So gendered violence is when you experience violence because of your gender. So like women face a lot of violence just because they are women. So for example, sexual assault, women are 5 times more likely than men to experience sexual assault. In domestic violence, 87% of the victims are women. 88% of the people involved in sex trafficking, the victims are women. So there are some very specific ways that women experience violence.
It can be hard to take a stand, and WEG applauds the courage of the people who took part in the march.
I thought it was awesome. It's very courageous for people to come out and to rally and to chant and to walk through the streets. And in a small town like Fort St. John, we don't see a lot of protests or rallies or marches like that. So for people to come out, I know there was a lot of people out here for their very first time holding a sign, walking down the street, and it's a very hard thing to do. It takes a lot of courage to get out there and to do that. So I'm extremely happy with everybody who came out and how many people came out.
These women are taking a stand, saying they won't be victimized anymore. But now is the real challenge, to extend the message of the evening to every day. For Around the Peace, I'm David Baxter, Fort St. John.